Black Friday deals. The gifts are unreal.
Shop JCPenney for thousands of deals so low, no coupons needed. This weekend, save up to 50% on kitchen electrics from brands like Keurig and Cuisinart. Say yes, please, to diamonds and gemstones, now $19.99 each. And bundle up the fam and coats, starting at $14.99. We got your holiday.
Black Friday deals. Shop, JCPenney.
Offers valid on select items 11/18 through 11/20. Excluded from coupons. Exclusions apply. See store or jcp.com for details.
Academy Award nominee Carey Mulligan and Emmy nominee Zoe Kazan star in She Said as New York Times reporters Megan Twohey and Jodie Cantor, who together broke one of the most important stories in a generation. A story that shattered decades of silence around the subject of sexual assault in Hollywood and ignited a shift in American culture that continues to this day. The film co-stars Oscar nominee Patricia Clarkson, Emmy winner Andre Braugher, and Tony winner Jennifer Ely, with Academy Award nominee Samantha Morton. She Said is in theaters now.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to
The Real Brady Bros.
I'm Barry Williams.
And I'm Christopher Knight. We are brothers from another mother and another universe.
That universe, the Brady Bunch. I played Greg.
I play Peter, yes.
Good news about our show. It's just like life. There's no problem that we can't solve in 30 minutes.
You know, we are adults now, but we have been blessed in that we can always and are always considered kids as well.
I love being a kid. I love being a kid.
Both at the same time.
I'm going to have grandchildren at some point here, and I'll still be a kid.
They will never take you seriously.
Show's been on for 50 years. It's still on. It's never been off the air.
Amazing to us as well, as it is to everyone else. Yeah.
New generations finding it, and we're here to talk about the original run of the series from 69 to 74.
We're trying to get insight into us, the human species, through the Brady Bunch, and using a sort of an envelope of an episode. We're going to look at an episode. We're going to talk about that episode here. We're 50 years after the fact, about our experiences in doing that episode, and then also how that episode relates to today, you know, and whether that be family, personal relations, or whatnot.
And don't forget the moral messages.
And there are a lot of them.
Yes, there are a lot of them, and some of them we'll probably make up.
We'll probably beat you over the head with them.
So here's what we're going to do, everyone. We're going to take an episode. We'll focus on it, what was going on at that time in our relationships with the sets, how things compare then to today. This is way, way deep beyond the scenes because it's with perspective as well.
And a little faded memory. But some of the stuff comes right back. Like the episode we're about to talk about. I got to pick this week's episode, and we're now talking about an episode from our first season. It might have been our 10th episode or so, about there. It was called A Camping We Will Go.
And what's that about?
We went camping.
Oh, that's right. Okay. See, we try and make it easy on the Brady Bunch.
But we quite literally, if you watch this episode, you see the writers writing us becoming a family. They didn't need to do that into the second year.
No, they didn't.
Frankly, one of the things that I found amazing is in real life, and I have to always remember that we weren't doing something that depicted real life. We were a very stylized comic form of life. But in real life, I'm sure there would have been a time I would have said to Carol, "You're not my mom. I wasn't raised with a step parent, but I've heard enough from friends and seen enough that I thought about it myself, thought I would probably have said that sometime."
These shows all have to be written. Sherwood Schwartz wrote the first one, and he was always giving input on different episodes, but we had writers, and we had probably 8, 12 different writers over the course of the years. It sounds to me like at this early stage of the show, they didn't know our personalities very well. Later on in the series, they were writing toward our personalities. It sounds like they listened to the theme song of a lovely lady who was bringing up and the boys and the girls and the stuff, and then that this group must somehow form a family, right? And then they, in this episode, kind of is a good example of that because these are the actual steps we took to becoming a family, going on a camping trip.
Matter of fact, this show closes at the last scene.
Oh, don't give away the ending yet. Let's wait. There's got to be some suspense.
All right, I'll back up. Well, I won't say that, but it'll call back to this. So remember this when we get to the end. It's an episode that's really steeped in the making of the Brady family. That it's one of the episodes in the first season does make it more challenging because the younger I was, the more faded those memories may be, even though it's only a year different than the second. You start working with a more adult mind and an environment that you're more comfortable in. And so I think my attention was more focused second, third, fourth, fifth year. In the first season, I think I was intimidated just by having been cast. Nonetheless, we got to go on location in this episode.
Location outside the set. That's always exciting. A beautiful location it was. One of the things I like about our first season is we were learning about each other, and we were learning how to get along, not just as a Brady Bunch family, but also as actors and people and all of that. And you can kind of see that freshness, that there's no jaded quality in the characters at this point, not like the fifth season.
And at this point we didn't fight back about the order.
Oh, you mean how we would come out? Yeah, right. All right, let's get going on this. Camping we will go. Mike is in the driveway, and he's pulling out the duffel bags that have been in storage for about 140 years, would you say?
I think that they've been rolled in, on safari. They hold dirt for more than dust. It's dirt.
Yeah, I think our prop masters got a little carried away with the dust because that became kind of the gag for the scene. It's always fun. Slap out the dust, and Carol coughs. But we're going to go on a camping trip, which three of us, the three boys, and Dad used to do together. But now, what's his big idea?
He wants us all to do it as one big family. That means bringing the girls.
The girls! The girls! That does give Mike Brady a good opportunity then to start almost right at the beginning of the show with one of his Mike Brady lectures.
Right on top. And what was that lecture?
Now, Greg and Peter and Bobby, now listen up. We're a family now. And yes, we used to go on camping trips together, but now we have three sisters too. It's going to be fun, it's going to be exciting, and we're all going to get along. Or else. Now, I never know what the or else is, but it sounded very stern to me.
I wonder what it would have been.
Yeah, who knows?
Well, and then we trot out in order. I wanted to point that out. And we didn't get to argue against the direction, and the direction for us was rather simple. It was whatever the order was, it was always in some kind of low to high or high to low.
It was low to high in this one.
Yeah.
It was Cindy, and then Bobby, and then Jan, and then Peter, and then Marcia,
and then Greg.
Pull up the rear there.
And we all march out. And then watching these shows again, I realized this wasn't about reality. I mean, it was high-styled comedy. It was on the verge of being slapstick. I mean, when you watch us go into the car in this episode, just how they shot and how they wrote the jokes, the director bought into the jokes and then had to figure out how to direct it. And literally, we all march into the station wagon from the back gate. And then crawl over the seats to get into the
doesn't everybody everybody enter the station wagon through the rear tail door?
Yeah. I do think that they got a little better. I mean, maybe writing more realistically as, we moved into the fifth year.
You know why that is? We're filming one camera, right? So they have the camera set up behind the car. If they're going to show everybody getting in the doors, then they got to move the camera, change the lights, and that's time. That's time. Time is money. So set up the camera and have everybody go through the back, climb over the seats. Easy. All right, next setup.
Just to set up the joke. The joke is that we all do this, like being squeezed, like paste out of a tube. Cindy comes popping out the other side at the front, out of one of the front doors, and then when she pops out the other side, she comes back to the gate to crawl in again. Not that she could go back in the door. She just popped out.
I call that signature Cindy.
It's just silly.
When people talk to me about their own families and that they're comparing their families to the Brady Bunch, or they had a lot of kids or didn't, and I'm always curious if they have an Alice, because Alice really was the glue for all of us, I think.
Well, how many have an Alice?
Almost none.
Exactly.
But here is front and center. She comes down in an outfit that I think we even see later in the series.
I think they thought, hey, this is a great characterization. Let's make more of this later. And that's
right. became
Sergeant Emma.
Sergeant
Right.
Emma, right? Which
In the fourth season.
her sister or something. And so anyway, she comes marching down. She's got everybody in line. She's got everything kind of organized. That takes a lot of pressure off of Carol, doesn't it? A lot of pressure off of Carol.
I read some Brady posts, and one of the questions is, what did Carol do? Because she doesn't really take the lead in the raising of the kids. She's sort of the second. And she sort of cooks when Alice is there. And she doesn't work. And the question is she looks great, but what does she do?
Well, she didn't have to do a lot when you have an Alice. And this is why Alice is so important. And besides, we could go to Alice with like problems that we couldn't even go to mom and dad with.
The Brady boys and the Brady girls are now a family and having to learn how to be one. And we have Alice. And Alice comes with the boys, right? So she comes with a history that is similar to the boys, I would have thought, because, she's been ours. And if we went on these camping trips before this one with the girls, then it does appear in some scenes as though she was on those camping trips with us. When Mike is telling her, get this or get that, she's got everything, but she's in the tent with the girls. All of a sudden, she becomes one of the girls, a non-camper, a non-experienced camper.
I see.
With Black Friday savings at the Home Depot, you can get top brand laundry sets with the latest tech to tackle any mess you might face this holiday, like automatic fabric and load size detection for spills of any size, from cookies and milk on your favorite holiday sweater to the toddler of the house discovering just how fun cranberry sauce can be. Make more magic this holiday season. Let your new appliances handle the mess. Shop Black Friday savings and get up to 30% off, plus instantly save up to $750 on select LG laundry sets at the Home Depot. How doers get more done. Offer valid November 2nd through 30th. U.S. only. See store or online for details.
Before we get into our tents, I just want to point out that car that we've been talking about, the station wagon. What goes around comes around. Recently, when we did the HGTV show, Brady Renovation, that was the car that I attempted to replicate.
That was a
Plymouth. It was a 69 Plymouth.
We had a green one later, right? Didn't we?
Yeah, this is the one that I used, except for, of course, for the the updated version, the renovation version. We put it on a rake and we put in big fat tires on it. We had the side pipes and we blacked out the hood and that kind of stuff.
Very un-Brady.
It was fun. That was a fun little project. And anyway, that station wagon got us all the way up into the mountains, which were really like the backyard of Beverly Hills, weren't they?
Yeah, it's in the middle of LA. For those not familiar with Los Angeles, we have a mountain range that runs through the middle of the city, the Santa Monica Mountains. Beverly Hills sits at the, sort of in the base and up to the hills. And right behind Beverly Hills is this reservoir called Franklin Reservoir.
And it is a very, very popular location spot for television, for movies. You'll see it all the time. I recognize it, when once you really look at it or kind of have a sense of it, and you're watching various movies on location, especially TV shows, you'll see the Franklin Canyon Reservoir come up all the time. It's a beautiful area and hidden right there in LA, so there are no expenses for getting there. It's a lot cheaper than going to, let's say, the Grand Canyon.
It does. It looks like we're out in far away in the mountains somewhere. Going to bring that up. Yes. So it's also the location used on the Andy Griffith Show, at least for their opening credits and their drive walk with the fishing pole. So it's used all the time in locations, but there's some challenges when working first on location with 6 kids. Well, let's just say it's a challenge always to work on location. And then it's a challenge to work with 6 kids and the laws that guide them. And then working in the middle of Los Angeles is a challenge as well because of the plane traffic. And we're shooting this show in 69, right?
Yep, 69.
Yeah, 69. There was plenty of louder plane traffic back in 69. Today, planes have gotten somewhat more quiet. There is more traffic, though. Now there's a lot of helicopter action. But literally, it blows up every scene that you're in. The audio gets destroyed. Let me ask you this question, Barry. This was the production's first experiment with us going on a location shoot.
Other than the pilot, yes.
Other than the pilot. But the pilot, it's a special circumstance. We had 8 days to shoot the pilot. We got 3 now that we're on for each episode. We didn't go back out on location for another 2 years after this experience.
Hey, speaking of that location, did you know this was not the first time that I was there on location? I had done a slew of commercials and TV shows, etc. But I did a television commercial at Franklin Reservoir and actually was able to swim in it. They actually went into the water.
You're kidding.
It was for Clearasil, cream, and they wanted to show that it was waterproof. So I got to go in and come out.
This is a reservoir that you're not allowed to touch because it's drinking water for Los Angeles, and I didn't think you could get a permit to get in the water.
I thought you were going to try and explain zits, and you don't need to do that.
But clearly,
no, Clearasil.
Thanks. But going back to this, why didn't we work in location ever again? Why do you suppose?
Expense. I think it was just cheaper to keep us inside and where it was a controlled environment, and they wrote the show that way. And then when we had a bigger budget, we went our first time after that, as you say, it was the Grand Canyon, and then later we got to Hawaii. Oh, Kings Island, but that was a whole different thing. We'll talk about that when we do that episode. That was actually a Paramount Studios property.
That was sort of an advert for one of their properties, right? Yeah.
So anyway, now we are up in the mountains somewhere, camping and fishing, and we had our tents set up, and then Mom and Dad make us go with the girls to go fishing. Didn't work out very well.
Yeah, and like you said up front, we were getting to know one another at this point. We are, again, I'm going to estimate here. This is around August of 1969. We got back into production after the pilot was picked up in June. So 2 months in, and we really didn't know each other very well from having done the pilot, and that was, 9 months earlier. So we're getting reacquainted and learning to work with one another. I apologize now, Barry, for the work I presented.
Well, it was unique unto you. I think you had your very, very stylized line readings. Sometimes they didn't quite fit what the words didn't quite fit with the sentence that you were making, or the intention. How did all that happen? Can you give us an example?
Yes, I'll try. I would learn later that I have ADD, and it doesn't go away. So now I know as an adult, I had it as a child, and I can watch the show and see it come out. And this is one of the things that I can see come out is I couldn't speak one word at a time, and a sentence is one word at a time. They literally all wanted to come out at the same time, like sideways, every word in the sentence. Blah! So I literally had to force myself to spit them out. And it ended up, I don't care what people were telling me. I could hear them, but I couldn't repeat it because I was just too focused on getting the words out. And I picked up a style that was like every other word needed to be emphasized. It was this.
Oh, so you had a rhythm
singing. Yeah. Like, what is it that I said? One of the lines in this show is like about the girls.
I remember you saying, "We live off the land.
We live off the land." I can't even do it. But I mean, literally, we'll harken back to an episode we did on the Underground movie. I'm watching myself acting badly, purposely, and when one is trying to act badly, this is precisely what they do. They just shout the words like out of like no real kind of focus on what you're trying to say or logic to it. And I had that style the entire first season. I'm glad to see that it did change starting in the second season, but a lot of nerves and focus issues. That's the reason.
I think your whole experience of doing and shooting the show would have been quite a bit different, quite a bit more comfortable if we knew then what we know now about ADD. I did not know you had ADD. Again, you didn't either. So nobody kind of understood, and it was just fine, and it, kind of just fit in. But I can see that it would be less than comfortable for you every time you're thrown into that situation, and, everything stops, the camera's going, and, it's quiet on the set, and the director is saying, "And action." In fact, that reminds me of our director. Well, we love this guy. We loved him. He did so many episodes in the first year. Oscar Rudolph is his name. He did the first 5 episodes after the pilot, and then several throughout the first year. And he was always
up.
Yeah, that was his direction for us. Kids, up.
That was his main direction for us.
Yep.
But that wasn't something you wanted to give me, because I'm literally trying to tether myself down, kind of metaphorically, because I'm going to just blow up. Literally, watch me twitch because I was told to stay in one space, without moving, so I start, twitching. Anyway, so it's fun watching.
So there we are. We were off to fishing.
You can't even catch a fish as small as we depicted.
This
like a
you
guppy.
couldn't even bait the hook with the fish that we had brought back.
It's ludicrous. And then the basket comes out. Oh, let's talk about the basket.
Because we
The
can't
food
eat. That was
basket
going to
comes
be
out.
the fishing was going to be the food for the day, and we didn't catch any fish
Right.
because of the girls.
And we just got there, right? So the food basket is presented, and it's like it was never wrapped. It was ready to go right out.
And
it was
delicious fried chicken, cold cuts, cheese, fruit. It was like a Martha Stewart lunch basket.
The way to a man's heart is through his stomach. And I think this is the first moment that the girls were offered credibility from the boys because we were starving, pretending not to. And the girls brought the food.
Well, the girls are always saving the day. It just takes us a while to realize it.
Did they really? Did they really always save the day?
That is my
episode, they
story,
saved
and
the
I'm
day.
sticking to it.
Well, they'll get us back later. Let's talk about the sliding glass door.
Oh gosh.
Right, because there's no glass in our sliding glass door. And I don't know if the audience notices this, but there's a lot of things I'm noticing that I'm sure the audience is not noticing. One of those things, and I look at it and I'm just struck by the drapes sometimes flowing outside of the frame because there's no glass in it. Glass creates a kickback and bounces light and it reflects the camera and all kinds of stuff that gets in their way. So they have no glass in the frame that is the sliding glass door. But a lot of times we forget to open it. We just walk right through it.
Oftentimes that's done with automobiles too. They take the windshield out.
This is a camping trip. We're away for at least a couple days and we all file out the sliding glass door and then just shut it. No one locks it.
Brady
No.
land.
Very, very, very Brady. And I'm the only one noticing that, I'm sure, at this point. But
No, we've gotten letters, and now we will too. It was self-locking.
oh, the world was a different place back then.
No smart homes, right? Mike couldn't get in the car and then lock it with his little key pod.
No, there was no remote entry, no unlock.
But what I loved about that was that he would close the curtains and then close the door, and then you would see the curtains still moving like with the wind. It looked like there was still, it was still windy in there.
Right, whatever, yeah, where the air the air wasn't being stopped by a pane of missing glass, of course. So yeah, it's just
Did you recall later on in the show, probably fourth year, I think, that Oscar Rudolph's son came in and directed an episode, Alan? That was pretty cool. That was very, very cool.
I do. He was our first AD?
For that season,
right,
yes.
and then he directed an episode, and then he would go on and become a well-known director. And that is one of the avenues to becoming a director, is to do it through the union by being a second AD or a third AD, second AD, first AD, a lot paying dues.
Trouble in Me was one of the big movies he had. Check out this cast: Chris Christopherson, Keith Carradine, Laurie Singer, Geneviève Bujold. I mean, really, really, really good people, credible people, and he had a whole kind of film noir style that took off. And
Well, I mean, his resume with the Brady on it was, definitely what got him, film noir work.
I like to think of it as the launching pad.
Well, look, he could handle us. He could handle anything.
Yeah.
I liked him. I really liked him when he was our AD. Efficient, respectful, nice.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're up in this beautiful, the Franklin Canyon, and we are camping. We will go. And what's going on now? Hijinks must ensue because it's the Brady Bunch.
So we're all happy campers at this point. Mom and Dad are recognizing that we're kind of getting along, and this is, kind of.
That's good. Oh, yeah, they're by the campfire. And then it's supposed to turn dark, but strangely, it doesn't really look very dark, does it? Because it wasn't.
No, and this is part of the problem working with kids. We had to be done by 6:30. We had 9 hours from the time we started, 8 hours from the time we started to the time we had to wrap it up, and never any later than 6:30. So we had a 9:30 call. We could be dismissed at 6:30, but mostly it was 9 o'clock calls, dismissed at 6 o'clock. No ands, ifs, or buts. In the summertime in LA, it gets dark around 8:30. So mostly what you would do with adults on location is you wouldn't call your actors in until 2:00 in the afternoon, and you would work into the evening if you needed to do night shots because it would be dark by 9:00, but you could still work because you called them in late. They couldn't do that with us. They called day for night, where they did filters on the camera. I don't think they did anything in post-production. They just put filters on the camera, which never made it really look dark.
It's called suspension. Suspension of
disbelief.
That's how we got through our 5 years. Anyway, Alice is having a little trouble getting herself situated with her hair curlers and
comedy. We had to have some comedy.
Pajamas and the blow-up air mattress and making a lot of noise. And then all of a sudden you hear...
Right. And then they're squealing, screaming, and Mike then leaves our tent and goes into their tent to find out what's going on. And then he utters a lie. Oh, maybe the only one. Because they think it's a wild animal of some sort. And there was a hoot hoot that goes off, and it's an owl. But her hissing, she thinks, I don't know, a snake or something. And he says there's no wild animals anywhere near here. Now, we don't know where we are, but we're out in the wilderness in 1969. There were more wild animals back then. And actually where we were, there are mountain lions.
Well, he was saying it was a park, that it was safe. I think that's what that was about.
She popped her air mattress with her bobby pins from her hair curls. And this is what I was referencing earlier about Alice. Seemed to be in the front end of the show like an experienced camper because she'd been on camping trips or fishing trips with the Brady Boys many times in the past. But now she's in the tent with the girls.
Yes.
And she is just as disturbed by animal noises and hapless as the girls were assumed to be. They never got a chance to be hapless. It all got played through Alice because she could handle that kind of physical comedy.
That scare out of the way, everybody settles back down, and then it's time for the boys, isn't it?
Somewhere then after that, we get settled back down after Bobby, indicates in his Mike's work always cracked me up. Perhaps because, not knowing it, I was this hyperactive kid looking to try to be settled, and I'd see that settled calmness in Mike's work, in what he brought to and how he portrayed Bobby. He was unflappable. He was the person I wanted to be. He's
very natural. He really was natural.
He's very, very natural. And
yeah,
this is one of those episodes in which he cracks me up because, the girls can't remember exactly what he says, but essentially, what good are they? It's after that the girls then sneak up outside of our tent with the bright moonlight that is lighting us up. They hold a cutout of a bear. It looks like a big graham cracker bear.
It's about 8 inches tall.
Up in the air with a flashlight. And we, you notice it out of the corner of our eyes and are scared.
Right.
But we run right to where the bear was. When we run out of we could run out of the tent and not run in the direction of where the bear was.
Got to get out.
But we run right to them. So we find it's the girls with a cutout bear. Mm-hmm. And now it's interesting because the writers had a choice. If you remember the original script, there was a scene written where we bring into the girls' room. This is now wrapping up the show after we come back from camping. The original scene written was us with a rubber spider. But I guess being confronted with that as a way to wrap up the show versus the theme and the theme song about coming together as a family, which is all that this show was about, they rewrote it and emphasized that point. It was a scene with you and Mom and Dad, and that's one that made it.
You've referenced the song a few times, and as we know in the later seasons, we all sang it as a family. One of the first shows to have a cast sing their own theme song, by the way, but that was the Peppermint Trolley. The Peppermint Trolley was the group that sang, not like we sang it, but they sang like, here's the story of a lovely lady who was bringing up three very real smooth pop, sunshine kind of sound. They were active 66 to 68, just about 3 years, and had some moderate hits, and worked on Mannix.
So they were a Paramount talent.
Yeah, so they were probably on Paramount Records. And then I believe it was Lloyd Schwartz's idea for us to sing the theme song, which kind of made sense. But that was cool. Just that one season, that first season, and then seasons 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then how many times we recorded it? At least twice, if not 3 times.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'd have to look at all the seasons, but I don't even know if what we see on DVD is the way it aired when we're talking about the opening versus the show itself. They could have put clamped on around an episode the wrong opening, but I do believe we did it at least twice. Did we? I think we changed the song when we changed the filming. We did like 3 different tic-tac-toe boxes, the Brady box openings.
Right.
And I think when we went to a new one, we also went to a new recording.
I was just thinking of the credits too, because if you look down the sides there, that how much we looked alike. Greg, Peter, and Bobby, how much we looked alike. And then I remember, wait a minute, Bobby's hair was dyed that first year. They used a black rinse on his, because his hair is fair.
They did it every year.
I was under the impression they stopped doing that at some point, because it kept running down. And under the lights, it would melt, and it would drip down on his face.
What it also looked like it was like shoe polish. I mean, it was so black.
It was way too black.
I don't know if they went to a lighter version of it or something. We got to get Mike on, one of our shows and ask him about that. He should be a guest. Yeah. We'll have him in the future.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about what we learned from this episode.
Yeah, there's always a lesson here. So the Peter in me says that girls aren't so bad is the lesson.
That's the lesson?
Well, we kind of, they're not so bad after all.
If you want to take separate parts to make a whole, you got to get along. So it's really about getting along and communicating and compromising a little bit and different strengths. In this episode, the gals are they are being mindful of what happens if, and they come through with a picnic basket, kind of saving the day, and as well as our diet and health. And I think it has a lot to do with getting along as a family.
I think one of the lecture items was try it, about going on this camping trip with the girls. Mm-hmm. So that also is one of the more adult lessons to be had in this episode. Give yourself an experience, and you might find that you're pleased by it, even though up front you might have been resistant. I think that's a lesson. I mean, it's about becoming a family. I mean, this episode was about us learning to want to be around one another.
How do you think we survived all of that? All these years, still being in touch, hitting all the major events of our lives, sharing in those things.
I think we grew up together, quite literally, like a family. We grew up at a time when there's more growth, in those years that we experienced together than there is at any other, 5-year span of one's life, between 6 and 11 or 9 and 14, whatever it might have been. Those are what is it? Formidable years. And
I think it's formative.
Well, for me, they were formidable. That's the theme of our show. How did I live through this? Formative years, yes. And we literally bonded like puppies to one another. And I know now that it doesn't matter how many years it's been since, we've seen each other. It's like no time has passed once we get back together. And that is very much like close family.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Well, we're going to have next week, we're going to do another episode. How about if I pick that one?
Oh, yeah, it's your turn.
Okay, everybody, thanks for joining in with us while we explored this episode. I'm Barry Williams. Have a sunshine day.
I'm Christopher Knight.
And we are
the real Brady Bros.
At Jiffy Lube, it's our job to make car care make sense. With personalized service reviews that swap the car talk for straight talk, so you know what your car is telling you and what to do about it. Putting you in the driver's seat of car care? That's a job for Jiffy.
From legendary director Steven Spielberg comes The Fabelmans, the new film inspired by his own childhood. Rolling Stone says The Fabelmans is the movie we've been waiting 45 years for Spielberg to make, and one of the most impressive, enlightening, and vital films he's ever made. Starring Michelle Williams, Paul Dano, Seth Rogen, Gabriella Bell, and Judd Hirsch. The Fabelmans, in theaters everywhere this Wednesday.